All right, well here, we're here to discuss the rapid action for these verify DB queries that were kind of discussed earlier this week in, excuse me, in the infrastructure group meeting. I'm going to dive over to the agenda here. There's an epic there that you can read up on. I think probably everybody in this group is pretty familiar with what's in there. Kind of first item on there, and I put this in yesterday, was that, you know, Darby and Gregorsh were going to spend some time kind of looking at this, kind of trying to come up with what the right plan is to accelerate this situation in that team. And I think Cheryl may be able to speak to this a bit, is that it's really, we think it's a capacity issue. That, you know, the team's executing really well, but when you look at the number of this type of priorities that they have and the number of people they have to work those, that's really where we're bottlenecking. And so the types of solutions we've been discussing in terms of accelerating that involve shifting some people around, probably on a temporary basis. And I guess I could kind of go into those details, or Darby, do you want to talk about kind of where we're at with that? And you're muted, by the way.
Can't hear you, Darby.
Sorry, still, you're unmuted, but you're not coming through.
How about now?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, unplug it, plug it back in. So Gregorsh and I talked this morning, and we looked through that epic. There's kind of two buckets of work that I think I would categorize here. Some of it's around the build queue, which is like how jobs get queued into runner. And that's kind of like an architectural change that we need to like focus on. And there's a lot of database load that comes out of that. And then there's another one that is more like general observability and database performance. So this is like N+1 queries and things like that. So we sort of felt there is, for the first item, some specialized domain knowledge is pretty helpful there. So like, this isn't just like any engineer can plug in there. It's like our best mode for success is to get some folks that kind of understand the data model and the underlying CI concerns there. And then the other type of work could be anyone that's experienced in Rails and databases. And Gregorsh, tell me if I'm misstating any of this. But
that's right.
Yeah, okay. So thinking along those lines and looking at that epic, there's, I think, 13 or 14 issues there total. 2 to 3 of them are sort of not the full scope of the queue work, but that's kind of what is captured there. And the rest of them are just these other database performance issues. So there's roughly 10 that kind of fall into that other bucket. And so that's sort of how, at a high level, we've broken down the work. The CI team currently has 3 backend engineers with Gregorsh, who spends part of his time there. And they've been focused on other things. So some of that work has been security related. There was some kind of urgent work around CI minutes. CI minutes reset is a process that happens every month, and that's been something that's been taxing the database as well. And then we also have another stream of work around artifacts, which is a thing we need to get in place for the consumption pricing change that's going to happen in a couple of months. That's been a top priority because of that sort of deadline that we have there. But I think we could push that out a little bit. So we have a little bit of flexibility there, but those are kind of like the 3 main things that the team is working on with the 3 people that are mostly focused on them. I'll stop talking now.
So to put a little more, thanks, Darby, to put a little more color add to that, I think the build queue work you're talking about, there's kind of this more strategic re-architecture potentially of, I think the theory is that some of this load is coming from the fact that we do queuing of jobs through polling against the database, and that's dry. We'd love to quantify what percentage of load that is, but that's kind of a complex thing to change, and that this other stuff is more block and tackle, and that's where moving kind of more standard Rails engineers in to help with this would be effective in accelerating that. So the proposal we were talking about, and I think this is maybe something we need to try to decide on the call, that rapid action needs a DRI. And what Darby and I were discussing was that makes sense in his role that he would be the DRI for driving this, but that really in order for that to make sense and be successful, he's got to be empowered with how can he bring some more people in on a temporary basis. I know we've discussed some options there to be able to accelerate this, because it's not, I think we've exhausted what we can do in terms of prioritization within the team or, just general efficiency.
Do you know what skill set you need?
So for the specialized stuff, someone with the CI background would be ideal. For the general observability and database performance, it would be probably senior backend engineer that is pretty strong at database work.
Okay. And how many folks do you need, do you think? Or how many folks would you want?
So I think for the general stuff, like I feel like if we had 5 people focused on that, and this could be some portion of the team and additional folks, I think we could get through those relatively quickly, pending any surprises and things along the way. For the other work, I wrote down Grzegorz and Camille because that's who I think would be great to do that stuff.
So I think this rapid action should be very limited scope, just handling the known issues. Don't expand it to the observability. That can be something we can tackle later. And Camille, definitely, I think Camille is already spending half of his time on CI-related topics and the pages, of course. We can continue that trend, so no problem from. Craig, I didn't ask you before this, but I think that's not an issue because Camille is already working on these topics.
Yeah, I mean, there's a direct line between CI and Camille. I'm not concerned about that. He's already working fairly closely with Grzegorz on this. And so I'm not super concerned with Camille doing more there. And thanks, Grzegorz, for staying so late. I know it's about 10 o'clock your time. Darby, did you have other folks in mind outside Camille, or is it pretty much you'll take anybody at this point in time?
Yeah, no specific individuals, unless Grzegorz, you have anyone in mind. But I think, I think senior backend with database.
So basically, something that might be helpful is getting someone from the scalability team. People there know a lot about database and how to improve code around bottlenecks in the product. So perhaps Bob or Sean could actually help if they do have capacity. Of course, it's always a matter of resources they have.
Yeah, so I can figure out if we can dedicate them more to it. I guess I just question whether or not they're already involved in these issues quite a bit. But I'll see if we can do more to have them focus directly on this work.
And I think for these kind of tactical level, like N+1 type issues, really what would be most effective is, correct me if I'm wrong here, but kind of senior level Rails engineers can fix an N1 plus query. Probably a lot of us have done that in our lives. And so, if we can find a group that maybe is well equipped to do that, could dive in for a milestone to focus on that. We've got 10 of these issues that the CI team is not going to be able to realistically prioritize, without dropping some of this other Sev1 type work. And so yeah, maybe those are folks in scalability. But I guess I wonder, is it really like deep database knowledge that we need here, or is it more just someone who can navigate the Rails code base and trace down where those queries are coming from, which is probably most engineers at GitLab.
I have a thought. Okay, so Sam, what you just described is what the memory team has dropped in to do several times. Many N+1 solutions. We have a couple database reviewers on the team with Matthias and Nicola. And we are currently ramping down the 2 gig footprint work that we're doing, running GitLab in a memory constrained environment. And we were going to start ramping up on the database scalability working group. If if the time box on this is a milestone, that might fit perfectly to redirect the work to the memory group and be less disruptive if we, you know, pick a single person from however many teams we need to pull this from. So that might work out as far as like skill set. And I mean, Camille, y'all already want him involved anyway, since he's got the build knowledge. And we've done this before with import and a couple other projects that are I'm forgetting at the moment, but that might solve a lot of problems here, at the risk of maybe delaying some work for the database scalability working group, which has not started yet. We're still a week or two from that even kicking off, so there may not be a conflict there yet.
So there are some issues that do require a good domain knowledge of the CI, but I think I can actually provide this domain knowledge, and with, of course, Camille's help. And everything else, like I think it's actually something that other engineers can tackle. There are certainly some issues that are complex and long-standing, like N+1 in a project's pipelines controller. That is something that we actually try to resolve for a couple of years already, and it also might require some domain knowledge. But basically, I think that with Camille's help, like even if he devotes like, I don't know, 20% of his time, it should be enough domain knowledge from the CI area to actually support other engineers too.
I'm trying to remember who we had working on N+1 problems in other groups when we hit this other times. I was trying to remember. Does anybody remember?
Pretty good. I don't, but it sounds pretty good to me. I'd do a +1 on that.
Stan worked on a lot of N+1 queries in the past, of course. But
yeah. I mean, I could try to pull in Stan, but I was just trying to figure out if there's other choices that we had.
Steve, you want to vocalize that?
Yeah, I agree that, I mean, if we push the database scaling group by a couple of weeks, I mean, it's important to do, but these other immediate issues are a lot more important. So I'll copy Jerry on this and make sure that he's aware of that.
Cool. And just to kind of say it explicitly, I think the goal of moving those folks, there's this strategic work around like build queuing, but really the goal of moving most of those folks for the milestone would be just to burn through those issues, to buy ourselves more time to potentially staff up there and get ahead of these things. So I think if we can, it doesn't solve the problem long term of like scaling the app, but if we can burn through all those issues in a month instead of 6 months, that feels like a pretty big win.
Steve, that wouldn't preclude us from at least coming up with a proposal around how we want to do sharding though, right? Because like Jerry's working on that primarily at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he has an MR that he's been working on for a while, and I think a few people have been involved with that. That can probably continue, but I think the idea here is, I mean, as much as possible, have the individuals we need to be able to focus on these problems. And so, I just asked him to kind of delay pushing much more on the work group there.
Yeah, just more of if we're gonna shift off of our shared OKR, let's make sure we go to Eric and in unison on that topic.
Yeah. Fortunately, we got a little bit more time, and we can always scope it a little differently. So
the shared OKR is the signed off proposal, right? And I don't think that will be significantly impacted by this, because Camille's already got some proposals that feed into that one. So I think we'll still be able to make some progress there. So I'm not super concerned about that.
Cool. Is there more? Are we kind of coming in for a landing on this one? It seems like we've got a plan of.
Yeah, the other idea I was thinking is well, Stan just joined because I pulled him in.
Hey, Stan.
Because he.
Hi.
Hey, Stan. So sorry about this. So we're having some CI DB performance issues, which you're probably already on top of and aware of. What I was trying to remember is I thought we did this before, and I thought there was more than just you involved because we need to pull in additional folks. And because of that, I was trying to remember who those other folks were. And, you know, because like Darby's like basically saying, hey, I need additional help. And I could point him at Tim, you know, to start Monday morning to say, okay, here, let's go figure out who additionally, but I didn't know if you had another list of names.
Well, I mean, SQL N+1 issues come up all the time, right? And so this is not unique. I think what's unique about this is it's, you know, specific on a verify, related issue, and it's hitting us hard lately, right? So in the past, you know, every team that has touched that code base or is aware of it, you know, either quickly addresses it or, you know, eventually gets solved when it becomes a problem. So I'm not sure if I understand the question in terms of like, you know, this is clearly a CI scheduling issue and the way we're doing it, and Jagarsh is well aware of what's going on now. It sounds like we just need more bandwidth for people to be able to work on this specific issue, right? Because it just sounds like
yeah, so that's what I'm doing is I'm trying to create the bandwidth. The thing is what I don't want to do is add additional people that then need 2 weeks of training on it from that perspective. So that's why I was trying to look at people that previously run into this.
You know, I think this specific problem, I think we recently discovered it, or at least it's been a problem, right, Jaguars? And we took a while to kind of figure out like what was actually calling it. So, you know, obviously the people who are, you know, who know this, the best, you know, Monty has been looking at it, Jaguars has looked at it, Camille's looked at it. I'm sure other people can pick it up quickly. I don't think it takes a whole lot of training. I think just getting it wrapping your head around what the problem is and then how do we solve it, right?
Okay.
Would you say that's fair, Jaguars?
Yeah, so basically, I think that the reason why we are seeing more of the infra-dev issues in that area is that we recently discovered a way to look at PostgreSQL and what queries are actually causing problems, and we started creating issues. And it's still a manual process. We don't have really great tools to like go somewhere to some kind of a dashboard to see, the impact of queries we write on database. But we started this manual process, and it's mostly Jose Finotto, I think, who's creating these issues, and Andrew Nightingale. And that's the reason why we have more of them. But we do have a few long-standing problems we couldn't address because of the lack of the capacity. And it's apparent that it's time to actually start working on them right now.
Yeah, and it's been a problem because suddenly, you know, CI scales, you know, as more people add runners, more builds, it hits the primary. It's gonna bring the primary to its knees because it's one of the most expensive things we can do on the database right now. So I know Camille's put out some talk about how do we do better queuing and things like that. That's probably a longer term thing. I think we can fix this specific issue probably in a faster time frame, but this kind of thing is going to come up all the time because when you start to think about millions of runners and millions of builds, like then you have to really start thinking about re-architecting the way we're doing the queuing right now.
Yes, for the queuing specifically, I created the epic about short-term solution. Like the long-term solution is definitely something we would need the architecture workflow to help with, but there is certainly a short-term solution, and I plan to work on that as soon as possible.
So Christopher, is your question is like who would be the right people to help with this? I mean, obviously Jaguars can lead the effort. We could probably bring
I was
in
thinking
a few
about like
people,
like dev, and like if there's anybody in dev that we would say would be good candidates to help out here. That's because like that's what Darby's really looking for is additional hands on keyboards. And you don't have to pick up names. Like I can also direct Darby to talk to Tim on Monday, and we can just pick, you know, kind of more at random. But what I was trying to remember is if people have already run through this, they potentially attack the problem faster.
Yeah, I mean, this specific problem is unique to like this query. So, you know, I don't think it's going to take a lot of ramp up for someone. Maybe the only ramp up is to understand like what we're actually trying to do and how we solve it. But yeah, okay. I think, and there's a lot of improvements I think Andrew's identified of like just general observability. I think that could be addressed, not necessarily by someone who's intimate knowledge of CI. That's something that you could pick up in a day. So I don't think any of this is like super technically like specific to a domain. Like it's just generally backend stuff.
You're underestimating yourself, sir.
I don't know, Jaggers, what do you think?
At least been working on it for 2 years. Okay, so yeah, let's do this. Darby, why don't you reach out to Tim on Monday morning and just say, hey, like whatever you think is the right number of folks. And I'll give both Tim and David a heads up that we're going to be asking for additional help on this issue.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem here is also that it's like a lot of these issues, and like 10 S3 issues suddenly actually make S1 problem, and the capacity is the major like concern in this case.
But if we get the database team and then a handful of other folks, sorry, not the database, excuse me, pardon me, the memory team involved, and a handful of other people, then I mean that maybe sets us up to burn through this.
Yeah, it feels like that's you know, if you have the memory team, that's 2 to 3 people, right? 2.
It's 4 if you count Camille.
Oh well, 4. Well, then we only need to find one other body according to Darby's algorithm right now. So
I thought it was 5 plus Camille.
Okay.
Well,
2 more.
Like what I'll say is if it's a memory team, if it's like 3 people, not including Camille, you know, we can shift some of the priorities in CI a little bit to get some of that capacity too. Like some of these things, if we're just going to push on this for a month, like the consumption pricing artifacts thing could probably go out. It could probably be pushed out a little bit. So that might be enough to get us there.
I have at least one engineer working on some of the issues in the rapid action epic already. So I think there's at least 1 or 2 we can pull from CI.
Okay, sounds like we're probably pretty close on that. We could either Darby or I could maybe summarize that in the issue, and then we can work out the details in terms of exactly like if there's other folks in Tim's group, or work that out on Monday. Move on to the next items in the last few minutes, or other comments on this?
Yeah, I do think the next item, I'm trying to find the agenda now. We were talking about the CI builds table, which is something Grzegorz has been working on. That like we still have some obviously major issues there around the primary key. I think to answer your question, Craig, like the other parts of that I think are out of scope for this. Other than like we were just kind of focused on that for the first thing being the primary key issue. But then the rest of those, like it's a larger plan, but part of our Q1 OKR was to get the architectural blueprint for that in place.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and the reason I was shaking my head so vehemently when Sam said, let's get the database team involved, just so everybody else knows, the primary key is a landmine that's laying out there for us amongst about 5 tables. We could run out of, we could hit a primary key overflow by the end of the year. And some of the more optimistic or pessimistic, however you want to look at it, estimates could hit us around July if we see some massive growth. So we need to fix that before we do anything else, because if we run out of primary keys based on our current structure, GitLab will just fail spectacularly. There's no other way to put it. So database team needs to stay focused on that and implement the work that they have in flight right now so that we can upgrade those primary keys that are currently using integers and then do the migration to the new structure, because that's going to take some time. Building some helpers, there's just a certain amount of time it's going to take to migrate all those keys over, and now we have a bunch of tables that need to happen at the same time. So long way of saying I really need to protect the database team members' time. That being said, this is a priority. They know it's a priority to respond if they are pulled in, and we've kind of set up a structure where Pat is going to take all the triage and try to protect Andreas and Giannis's time so they can focus on implementing the primary key fixes.
Yeah,
Makes sense. Don't run out of numbers.
just highlight the primary key is in danger. I mean, as early as this summer, our database will fall.
Yeah, and I put that in item 3 just to capture it. What you're saying, Craig. Anything on item 4? Did we cover? I have to read through it, but anything we should vocalize there?
Yeah, I think you kind of started talking about 4 there as well, and so I put the epic in there. Thanks for confirming that that's the one, Craig. The one maybe side note, and really it's maybe more for the epic, but I'll just mention it here. If there's some more ambitious approach to solving, like primary key exhaustion is like, that would be the thing that keeps me up at night. Like having run into that before, that frightens me. So like if there's something more ambitious we need to do, like around, part of a failover to, big int values as part of the PG12 work. I know that's coming right up on us, or in, the 14 release, if we need to take downtime or something like that, versus just, shadow tables and everything, the approach. Like, I just invite you to bring those up, and we certainly can do that. We just would like to avoid it. So.
I have, so Chun and I meet with Jerry on a weekly basis to talk about database and infrastructure issues. And that's the top item I have on our next meeting agenda as soon as Monday. What's our break glass in case of emergency strategy? Like, should we, anyway, we don't need to dive in details there, but yes, we're having that conversation Monday.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, I'm sure there's lots of discussion about like, no, we can't have downtime. No, we can't have downtime. Like this is one of those balancing things. Like the risk is so high if we hit that event that we should look to entertain those things if we need to. So thanks.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you.
I had that happen once too. Yeah, it really sucks to run out of those.
And Jigor's put up a good idea here, and I think it's part of the rapid action process anyway, to create a channel for this rapid action and have, I put in there, we'll make sure that DB maintainers on my team are monitoring that, and we invite all 9 of our company-wide DB maintainers in case somebody says, hey, I need an urgent review. And again, maybe I ask my team members to put the red dot on so that it doesn't always stop review requests for my team, but it will slow them down. If they have the red dot, they'll still get the direct assignments, but there are ways that we can make sure that they are more available for this rapid action.
Do we actually also need the trainees and the reviewers here to help accelerate the review cycle? I know that's a larger audience. Maybe not necessary for rapid action.
If we're bringing in the memory group as part of this, then I can just have Matthias and Nicola be like the frontline reviewers for those, because they're already database reviewers. So maybe we just have like a streamlined domains knowledge or domain expert on this, like memory teams involved. Nicola and Matthias need to prioritize any database reviews and just have anybody in this effort directly assign it to them for review. And I can have them red dot as well, so they have that bandwidth to be able to review them immediately. Just the thought.
Okay.
Okay, we could probably, oh, sorry, go ahead, Chen.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, maybe we just due to time, probably can sort that out after, but it sounds like we're on the right track there. Are you gonna create the Slack channel, Craig, or?
Yep, I'll do it.
Awesome. Then, yeah, we got 1 minute. We might be able to speed through some agenda items. We definitely should get to number 7. I was interested, maybe we table this for the next one, but I was pretty interested in learning more about marginalia and other kind of tools we have that might be able to answer questions like where the load is coming from. And it also seems maybe less important if the memory team's jumping in, but if we're asking engineers to jump in and identify these things, making sure that, we understand what tools they have available. So I'll move that to the next one. Craig, you want to do number 6?
Yeah. So I'm not sure how related this is, this bottleneck is to what we're working on, but group access is having similar struggles. And based on feedback from Andrew, the reason I brought it in here is in one of these charts, it says the replication lag saw a high amount of traffic to CI builds table. So that's why I brought it in here for a discussion. I don't know if it's related. I don't know if there's a systemic issue with the amount of N1 queries or something's going on with our access layer to the database, but it seemed at least somewhat related to what's going on.
Should we move it to the next one? I don't know if we could also, maybe some people can stay longer, but I don't know if we'll get to the bottom of that right now.
Are you talking about number 7?
Number 7, yeah.
It might make sense to bring Tim to the next discussion or whatever team that is, and then I'd say let's discuss that at the next thing.
Cool. Cool, and then 8's FYI, and yeah, next time we should meet, Monday or Tuesday. Any opinions?
I like Monday just because I'm an urgent guy on this issue. But I don't know if like we'll have much time other than potentially bringing new cast characters to the show. So Darby and Sam, that's up to you too.
What do you think? I'd leave it up to you, Darby. What do you think?
We got verified team day all day Monday, or at least all morning. So probably like Tuesday would be better from that perspective.
Okay.
Maybe Tuesday morning or late morning.
Postpone verified team day?
I don't think I'll just say I don't think we should. There's a lot of effort that's gone into that, and the goal of it is to really bring the team together and align on mission and vision and stuff. And so I think that
this isn't a team day in like a fun day. This is a team day in a
it's actually let me be a little differently say it. I'm probably too passive there. Steve, are you okay that we're having one gap day in there? I know that's not a deal, but I know the temperature on this is we want to see progress, but I think the temperature's, I'll say, medium warm, not like critical hot at this point. Is that a fair characterization? Or
no, I think that's fine, and we can see progress async along the way, and then Tuesday's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, those N+1 issues are actually severity 2, so I guess we have a little bit of room here to wiggle.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it by severity. I'd ask the stakeholder in this discussion.
Yeah. I think that it was
like you all were talking about running out of number or running out of database entries, indexes a minute ago, and us falling over. If Steve right now said we're going to fall over, then I'd be taking different action, right? So
we would cancel the team day if you said that. Postpone
among other things. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
No,
I'd say too, maybe you're thinking about this already, Darby and Gregor, but this is I know we're talking about architecture and things at the team day, not that we should redo the whole thing, but there's a topic here, right, that could be discussed and brought up.
Before we end, I do want to say thank you, just real quick, for juggling all this and everything. And I know I say thank you for everyone who's, definitely receives a page and all that, and of course, for when it ends up avoiding a customer impact. So thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
The last, or not the least, but I just want to recommend that we keep this rapid action of the scope as small as possible to just handle the urgencies and leave the re-architecture, whatever that is, to a longer term, because the DB primary key issue that's a falling. I mean, the sky will fall.
So I don't know about anybody else. I can stay on. I'm curious about some logistics, and it seems like it would be like me, Darby, Sam, and Chun to kind of talk about like maybe some of the high priority items and logistics around memory team involvement. If anybody else can stay on, if not, we can go async.
I'm available. Yeah, maybe some people want to drop off, but yeah, we could go into that now.
I have one other meeting I need to go to, but I can jump back as soon as I'm done with that.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
I'll jump up. I don't think I'm useful here.
See you, Elliot. All right, is everybody else staying?
You want me on the call, or?
Maybe you have some insight into what's already being worked on.
Sure.
I'm curious as to like, what are the are there any top issues that can be worked on right now to alleviate some of the pressure? It seems like limiting, great, limiting the number of CI runners would be a big one, right? That seemed like a big problem that we ran into and caused a lot of these issues. I think the peak one customer had 7,000 runners that was really causing some issues. So is that, am I understanding it right? Is that a top one that should be worked on now? And like, are there like 1, 2, 3, and 4 that should be worked on now that maybe memory group can jump in or you already have covered? So I'm just curious if that's.
I thought that 7,000. I thought that 7,000 was already killed. That's a mistake by the support team when they were setting up the environment for UBS testing.
It is. It was fixed. That incident was fixed, but the possibility or potential for another customer to set up X number of runners could happen again. And there's a proposal out there to limit it to a couple hundred, right, Cheryl?
This is actually an Elliot issue, but I don't know, Grzegorz, you might be able to shed some light on this one because you had been discussing it with their team.
I got a little bit distracted. Can you repeat what the question?
I guess the question is just like, what are the top priority issues if like the memory team right now is going to start looking at something, and is limiting the number of runners the top priority for them?
So I think that the top priority issues are the issues that actually contribute to the biggest decrease of the AppDex score. If we, take this infrastructure-centric approach to actually decide which are the worst, it's presumably the queuing, the issues around runner, and I can remember what else creation of runners. Limit the number of runners, SQL n+1 in runners. And then the 409 conflicts, that's something I'm working on already. And the canpick query, it's also something I'm working on already. These, I think, are the biggest priority, the highest priority issues in that epic. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and if I look at the issue itself, Craig, it looks like it is scheduled for 13.11. So it sounds like it's on their roadmap, but if memory team has capacity, I think that would be a good candidate.
Yeah. So maybe sounds like one of the first steps is to go through that epic and kind of prioritize like what can buy us immediate relief versus what's going to take longer. And we can do the timing of what's the memory group working on now and who is going to come up first so that we can then start assigning those. Because unless we need to start working on it tomorrow, I would like to see the memory group wrap up what they're working on right now. And logistically speaking, headcount resets typically involve like taking a team member and moving them to another team for a while. And what I was proposing when I talked about the memory group is just bring the work to us. So I wanted to ask that question too, and it's probably maybe a Chun Sam conversation. Is that acceptable? So bring the work to the memory group so we're not resetting reporting structures or anything like that. Let's just funnel the work to the memory group and then we can refocus once we're done helping out there. That was what I was proposing.
I feel comfortable with that at this point. I mean, I'd kind of think of it as like Darby's the DRI for the overarching rapid action and needs to be able to, kind of pull in the right people and, in this case, kind of direct the memory team, I mean, with a lot of input. It's more collaborative than that. But yeah, I don't see why we would want to change reporting structure for this. I don't know if you do, Chun.
Yeah, this is a rapid action. It actually doesn't involve any organization change. The headcount reset is actually a long-term organization change. So yeah, I think we shouldn't do that in this practice. It's just a short-term emergency or firefighting thing. Okay, cool. Right. Both of them were suggested, so I just wanted to clarify. So we'll redirect the work to the memory group. There's a first step to triage to figure out what the priority is, what the impact is, and what we can reasonably ship to what team. So I think it's probably Grzegorz and Camille prioritizing, and maybe someone from the runner team, maybe someone from Elliot's team to kind of prioritize
this is where we can get the immediate relief and put them in priority order within the epic. Does that make the most sense?
It does to me. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, I mean, another way to think of it would be maybe planning out the milestone, you know, that if we're kind of saying it's a ideally time boxed effort where we're just going to burn through these, kind of what, you know, what's the schedule that we think we can tackle that in, and, you know, so like what are the top priority issues we want to tackle, and how many do we realistically think we can do? Can we do all of them in a month?
No, but that's all right. So the way I typically look at these is just look at the epic, and this is the epic in question, and then have them prioritize top down, and hopefully the order remains, right? I know it can get messed up at times, but does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I think so. I think I would, like Grzegorz and Camille would be the experts here in working with Darby. And, you know, they also have knowledge of runner, so I would expect the two of them would be able to figure that out. Sorry, speaking for you, Grzegorz.
Sorry, like basically at this time, I just cannot divide my focus. Like it's only one thread in one CPU.
So full transparency, I'm asking Grzegorz questions in the background. Grzegorz, I'll say it right now. I'm the guilty party. It's all my fault. Everybody else. You can ignore my back comments till Monday if you want to. Like it's more just background thread. So apologize on my end for that.
Don't be part of the problem, Christopher.
I know, and I'm turning red. I'm physically blushing because of it. So anyway, go ahead, Grzegorz. Like ask Grzegorz the question again.
No, I think we're good. So I think what it sounds like what makes sense is Camille and Grzegorz meet up early in their day on Monday. They prioritize top down in order of impact on that epic, and then we can start figuring out as soon as Monday, because I have a memory team meeting on Monday, and I can give them the free puppy of, hey, we're going to go work on this now, and figure out when we can start jumping on those things. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I have just a question. So do I understand that we want to tackle the observability issues separate from the rapid action, or are at least some of them in the scope of the rapid action?
I think if there's some quick wins in the observability, let's do it, right? Like if it's easy enough to add them in, but I see Chen shaking his head. If it's a huge undertaking, then defer it for later. Let's figure out what we need to do to fix this and identify next steps from there.
Okay, because basically I think that sometimes we need to improve observability to be able to fix something. So I guess that this kind of observability improvement is in scope if it might be required to actually fix a performance problem.
That's probably a good conversation, like for you and Camille and Darby, you know, to have, is kind of like, what's the plan? And obviously the plan should involve like a plan that can work, you know, but I think Chun's point, I agree with that. If, you know, we got to be pretty, I guess aggressive, maybe there's a better word, but about, you know, like what we focus on. We don't want to, a lot of scope creep in rapid actions.
If it's really, low-hanging fruit, or, you know, as a minimal effort to do that, and also required to diagnose the issue, then I'm okay with doing that. But let's just don't make it creeping out like we do everything about the invisibility. That's going to make this rapid action creeping out the scope.
Cool. So I put kind of a to do and 12 there. I think the action item is basically Grzegorz and Camille working with Darby as kind of the DRI for rapid action to have a prioritized list of issues kind of end of day Monday. And then we'll use that in the, you know, the next sync up to really get into like who's going to do what and next steps. Does that sound about right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We got a couple items for next time, but we'll let Grzegorz get to bed, so you can be well rested on Monday for team day. Anything else before we call it? All right. Well, thanks everybody for your responsiveness and work on this.
See ya.